Hello IBK. As promised, here is your feedback to the evidence paragraph from last week. Now, first of all, this is the first time you're writing the evidence paragraph. You did not know exactly how to do it. So keeping that in mind, it's actually quite okay as a paragraph. Now, let's see more specifically. Here, this part is a very good description of the evidence, and this would be part of your identification paragraph in the exam. Remember how there are two separate paragraphs? One is the identification paragraph, right? And one is the evidence paragraph. So this directly goes there. So that's exactly how you would start in the exam. Of course, you would separate the two paragraphs, but you would start with this. You would start with the supporting idea. Except in the exam, it would be the supporting idea you are discussing, right? And then what evidence the speaker uses. So in this case, you want to discuss it was basically an email that he shared from Oracle, right? As you say here, it's a screenshot of an email. Okay, now we have to discuss the three things: sufficiency, relevance, and representativeness, which is what you've done. So the evidence is considered as poorly sufficient. Okay, very good. Why? Now here, when you say because there is no direct link to the source, maybe, but that's not the kind of things we're looking at. Sufficient, even if there was a link to the source, that would not make it sufficient. Sufficient is basically you're asking yourself the question, is this evidence enough to prove the supporting idea? Right? That's the question. Is the evidence enough to prove the supporting idea? And the answer is absolutely not. You cannot with one email prove such a general point, right? The point he's making about there being systemic, what he calls discrimination in diversity programs, you cannot prove that with one email, right? So it's definitely not sufficient. Now here you go on and say, moreover, in the cases when the speaker uses other evidence materials. Now before that, you would have to actually say what this evidence is. So you would actually have to write in the identification paragraph exactly what the evidence is. So you would have to identify the evidence, right? So you would say he uses a journal article, he uses a screenshot of another journal article, he uses a screenshot of a newspaper article. So you would list these things. Okay? And then when you say it's in cases where he does not provide citations and references, actually the screenshots themselves are, he doesn't provide citation, but you could definitely follow up the source. So here we're not so much interested in whether there is a reference to the material or not. We're interested in whether it's relevant, right? And relevant means, is it appropriate to prove the supporting idea, right? And here you're saying that the evidence is relevant to the main idea since they're connected to the topic. Okay, I think that's a good comment. The Oracle Developer Scholars Program is relevant because it does indeed talk about a tech scholarship, and it does indeed talk about this, does actually specifically invite a certain racial group. So that's what you can say, right? Now, when you come to the representative, you're saying that the evidence can be considered representative because his arguments are supported by visual aids. Again, it's not the visual aids that would make the argument representative. Whether they're supported by visual aids or not, they could be representative or they could be not representative, regardless of the visual aids. So as far as representativeness, the question you're asking is, how typical are the examples given? And here you want to ask yourself, he gives a screenshot of one email. Are all job advertisements similar to that Oracle Scholars program? Do all of them specifically invite certain limited racial groups? He has not proven that because he's just given one email. It's not necessarily representative of all internships in all of the US. So that would be the discussion of representativeness. Okay. And here, when you say that the evidences are academic and therefore suit the three criteria, again, the evidence can be academic. That does not automatically make it relevant, representative, or sufficient. It could be non-academic, and it could still be all these three things. So again, whether it's academic or not, that does not automatically make us conclude whether it's sufficient, representative, relevant, or not. Okay. So here, just it's okay to mention that they are academic sources, and this would be good material. All of this would be good material for your identification paragraph, right? But in the evaluation paragraph, we are mostly interested in these three questions, and that's regardless of whether it's academic or not. So basically, academic evidence could be very bad and non-academic evidence could be very good. So our discussion of the three things, representativeness, sufficiency, and relevance, is regardless of whether it's academic or not, regardless of whether there are citations, right? But I think this paragraph is a good start. So you have the model from last week, and then we actually had discussions in our small group tutorial this week. You missed that one, but I will be providing a model of what we discussed of that paragraph early next week, so you can also use that model. So I hope this is helpful, and next week we are going to practice the whole exam, the whole process, so you'll have another round of practice. Okay, so I hope this is helpful, IBK. It's a good start what you have here.